Hello everyone, I'm home. Welcome to my channel. I got up early this morning and sat by the fireplace and enjoyed the soft glow of the Christmas trees in our living room. That's my big tree with all my old ornaments, and that's my nature-inspired tree. I think I'm going to end up putting the nativity tree there, but I haven't really decided yet. I just love early mornings and late evenings when I can look at the lights. Yesterday, I went and visited my friend Rosie, and she had decorated all of her wooden bowls with the prettiest things. She just puts berries and garland and greenery. And this is a bowl I gave her a couple years ago. It's a live edge bowl. And she's got pretty little chocolate molds and little wood spatulas and wooden spoons and little wooden scoops and that beautiful variegated poinsettia. I thought that was so pretty. When you come in her door, she has a little dry sink with a bunch of little crocks, and she puts a bunch of candy canes in them. Then she had another wooden bowl full of just glass ornaments and Christmas cards, and it reminded me of the little wooden bowl in my miniature antique shop that's got little beads in it, and I made that bowl years ago. She's got a lot of really pretty metal molds, and she likes her Santas. I think I've gifted her a few of those Santas. And then in her hallway, she has this beautiful piece. It's like a wrought iron gate. I think she said she got it at Hobby Lobby. And she just tucks her Christmas cards into it and just different cards through the years. And then the little snow doll that I made her, we set her up on a sifter that Rosie has hanging by her door, and we cut some greens and put around the bottom of it, and it turned out really pretty. So I came home and was inspired to get busy and put some greenery in my wooden bowls, and I added the little stockings and the orange slices and some lights. I had a strand of 20 lights is what I put in it. And it looks real pretty on the kitchen table. I kept the little gourd that I had in at Thanksgiving time, and then my little cloves and my oranges. And I have a big basket of magazines, and I sat there and looked through magazines, and that got me thinking how I told you guys I was going to tell you how I manifest all these wonderful things that come into my life. When I was young, I dreamt of the life that I have right now. I really did. All my cousins were out playing and hollering and screaming and fighting, and I was in the house drawing pictures of what my house was going to look like someday. That's the truth. And I was manifesting things before I even knew what manifesting was. I didn't know what it was, and now that I look back, I think, man, I did manifest this stuff by thinking about it and dreaming about it and speaking out loud to the universe for what I wanted. And everything I've ever wanted has really come my way, and I think manifesting has a lot to do with it. For instance, I made this quilt years ago. It's a 50-inch square quilt, and I gave it to a friend, and she put it on her table and uses it for a tablecloth. I don't know if she still does, but ever since I gave that to her like 35 years ago, I've thought about making another one. But the other day, I was in a thrift store, a church thrift store, and I found this 50-inch square quilt. I think it's a wall hanging, but it's made from a kit, and someone did a beautiful job on it. It was beautiful and clean. I came home and washed it, of course, but it had the most beautiful fabric. It was machine quilted, and I'm a purist, and I believe in hand quilting myself, but that's just me. I know machine quilting is fine, but I think they look like they come from a store, but a lot of people do that anymore. And it was made in all the colors of my house, the rust and the burgundy and the gold and the green. And the backside is a beautiful gold color, so I can flip it over after Christmas and use it all year long. It's just beautiful, and I'm so happy to have it. I went in, and here's the kicker. It was $1. I couldn't believe it. And I put it on my table, and it fits perfect, and it just reminds me so much of the one I made for her, and I would never have gotten around to making me one. And I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but years ago when I was young, a salesman came around with a big catalog of Christmas cards that you could order, and I couldn't wait for that person to come to our house, because we would sit at the kitchen table And while Mom and Dad visited with the salesman, I would go through the book and try to pick out our Christmas card for the year. And they had the most beautiful designs. And I always liked the foil ones and the ones with like the velvet, like fabric on them. And they were all so beautiful. And what I've come to learn about these as I'm looking, these are online right now for sale, is some of these catalogs were fundraising catalogs for different organizations. But I don't know if regular people came to our door or a salesman, but I enjoyed going through their catalog and picking out cards. They were just so beautiful. And when I see cards like this in an antique store anymore, I pick them up because they're usually $1 or $2. And I just set them around for decoration. These were some of my favorites where you could get from the 3 of us, from the 4 of us, from the 5 of us, and they'd put your name on the mailbox. Oh my gosh, they don't do things like this anymore. I suppose you could special order them now. You can order anything, but this is a card that I picked up in a store, an antique store several years ago, and every year I try to pick up another one. I think the pictures inside them and the notes that people write and their handwriting and the font that they used was just, and these cards were like folded over, like they were made out of thinner paper and folded like 4 times. I mean, they put a lot of effort into these cards. And I love this one with the holly berries and the bow. It's got some glitter on it. It's just beautiful. And I love the way they look inside. I just think I just go back in time. And I made a tradition out of going one day by myself. I go to some antique stores that I like, some of my favorites, and look for Christmas cards, postcards, and I treat myself to a vintage ornament every year. This is one we had when I was a kid, but this little green one and the little pink one on the bottom, I got those a few years ago at a place in Lafayette, and I just pick one up every year. Well, this year I went to my favorite store. I take myself out for lunch. I don't mind eating lunch by myself. I rather enjoy it. I sit there and make lists and look over messages and all that. Well, the first booth I went into, I found this one. And this was my first one I bought this year. I was only going to buy one, but I ended up finding several. Antique stores often have a few, and sometimes you'll find maybe 1 or 2, and sometimes you'll find a lot. I thought this one was just beautiful with the orange and the pink and some of it missing, all the colors, and it was just, and they call these an indent ornament. And then these are the other 2 I picked up at another booth. They had several, but these were my favorites. I like pink and I like the gold. And then I was looking through one of my magazines, one of my very old magazines, and I saw this picture in that magazine. So I've looked at this picture before and thought, I want ornaments like that. And when I saw them, I was attracted to them. And this is them hanging on the tree. I just think they're so pretty. And then a few months ago, I was looking at a magazine and I saw this chair, and it's a Hickory brand chair, and I thought it would go well with my Facebook Marketplace love seat I found at a good price. As a matter of fact, a very similar love seat is in the window of an antique store nearby, and I can't get in to find out the price because they've been closed. But here's my chair. I walked into Goodwill one day and they had this one someone had just brought in for $24. It was actually $30, but with my husband's senior discount, I got it for that. Then this little wrought iron candle holder or whatever it is, I picked it up one day and just thought I just loved it. And I'm looking through a magazine again the other day, an old one, and there's the little wrought iron candle holder that I saw in that magazine, and I thought I wanted it, and several years later I found it. And I leave it on my porch because it won't blow over, and if it gets more rusty, I just love that. And then I was noticing in magazines that they were having these flat baskets that would lay against your door really nice so that, that everything wouldn't get smashed. And I saw several of them, and I never could find one in the store. And if I did, they were so expensive, I didn't want to pay it. So one day, I've showed you this in another video, I found this flat basket that looks like a vase, and it's kind of a greenish gray, and I just love it. I saw this table one time, and I looked at it many times in that magazine thinking, I'd love to have one of those. And one day I found one. It's a 6-foot long farm table. And what I'm trying to tell you is first of all, you got to know what you want when you manifest things. I've learned a lot about manifesting through different self-help things on the online. I look them up to see how they do it. And you have to focus. You have to say, okay, this is what I want, and have repetitious thoughts about it. And if you do that, whatever your thoughts are, that's where your mind and your body is going to go. You're going to head for that item. It's weird. You don't really think about it, but you've got it ingrained in you. And write it down and shout it out. Ask for it. Tell the universe, hey, this is what I want. I've done it for years, and I don't even know how to tell you. If you believe and you have faith in it, it will happen. Everything will come back to you. It's kind of like when, and in the end, be grateful. Be grateful if you get it or not. But when you put it out there, it'll come back to you. I don't even know how to explain it. It's just the oddest thing. It's kind of like a yellow car. You don't think about a yellow car until someone starts talking about it. And then all of a sudden, you see yellow cars. Okay, so my husband and I didn't even want to tell you guys about this because you'll think I'm crazy. You got to touch things. My husband and I were driving down the road, and he said, what are you doing? And I'm looking at a magazine. I said, nothing. He said, why are you touching pictures? I said, because I want this thing. And this is one of the things I wanted. You saw me touching that little Sleepy Santa cup in Marge Clark's cookbook. This book I got in 1994 for a wedding gift from my friend Addie. And Marge had it decorated so cute. She had some treats in it with a cellophane bag and a bow. And I must have touched that picture 100 times in many, many years. And several years later, ta-da, I walk into a thrift store and there it's set for 69 cents. It's the most beautiful Santa. I've never been crazy about those Santa mugs. I think they're kind of cartoonish, some of them. But this one is absolutely beautiful, and it's the only one I've ever seen since. And remember my French country chair that I didn't have in my truck and had to go back in the truck and pick it up at Goodwill? Well, I love this chair, and the other night I was looking at an old magazine and look at the cover. I have looked at that chair before many times and thought, I'd like to have a chair like that. And here's another one out of a magazine, and here's another one. I would focus on these things and think that's what I want. But you know what? My chair's prettier than all of those chairs. So it comes back to you in even a bigger way. And then this is another quilt I saw in a magazine. And remember that caramel colored quilt I got recently? And here's the little French country, I call it, clock that I got for $1, and it actually works. Looking through an old magazine, and there's one there that I probably looked at many times and thought, I'd love to have a clock like that. And these mugs, I can't stop finding these. I've got so many of them. I've been passing them up lately because if you go to TJ Maxx and those places, they're wanting $10 to $14 for one of these mugs. And I find them for 59 and 69 cents all the time. I've given Rosie a set. I've given other friends sets. And these big canisters, the big one is like $19 at Walmart. I'm finding them all the time for $2. And I've got a whole set plus a few. I've given them to people. I gave Marianne one just the other day to put sugar in. I find these things, I can't stop them from coming to me. And my fabric, this is a magazine picture. I touched it, and I touched these books, and I'm out thrifting, and I find the very things that I'm showing you. This is me. This is a magazine picture, and this is my total vibe right here. And this is my coffee table. And I'll leave all the rust colored things out all year because they go with my house. And my nativity tree that's coming up is all those colors. You're going to go crazy when I get that box out. We're going to do that this week. And all of those colors go with my nativity tree. Now, my husband went by the old house where he grew up the other day, and they're remodeling it. Someone bought it and is remodeling it. And there was a bunch of scraps out in the yard, and I took some of the wood and made a little house out of some of that wood. And then I was at Dollar Tree, and I found this little battery-operated light that's super bright, and I put inside it. And I'm going to put that under my tree. And my husband really likes it because the little tiny slivers of wood are made out of the wood from his house he grew up in. Then this was a little Halloween chair that I found at a thrift store, and it was orange and had pumpkins all over it. And I only had it about a week. I was going to paint it, and the back fell off of it, and I couldn't get it to stay on. So I ended up where the holes were across the back. I put some just wood scraps that I had, and I stained them. And I painted the thing black and put the little Santa Claus sticker on it. Then I thought, what the heck am I going to do with this? It kind of looks like a pencil holder or something. And it's a riser. I mean, risers are real popular right now. So I ended up just putting some greenery on it and a little dried rose out of my garden. And I really don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I had to save it. I set it on the back of my counter and set some Santas on it. And I've just been kind of toying around with what I might end up doing with it. I just couldn't throw it away. It was so cute. It had the cutest little legs, and it's pretty. So I made a roast in the crock pot 2 nights ago. So this morning I got up and made noodles with my rolling pin of my grandma's that has no handles that I love. And I make noodles maybe at Thanksgiving and Christmas, and I don't know. We were just hungry for them, I guess. I use about 1 cup of flour to 1 egg, and then I use a lot of flour and roll them out thin, stack them with flour in between, and I cut them really thin when I make beef and noodles. And I take them and put them in a colander and shake out the excess flour. And then look, isn't that a lovely old-fashioned Sunday dinner? Better known as carb overload Sunday dinner. But you can do that every now and then. And this is what the table, I used those dishes at Thanksgiving, and I forgot to show you guys a picture of it. So I thought I'd show you. We used those again today. And then I used my little riser and put a candle on it. So it might end up being a candle stand. I don't really know what it's going to be, but I'm so glad I saved it. And then my friend Sherry, as I was cutting the noodles, I thought about this cutting board I wanted to show you. She got me this cutting board that says, Happy Christmas Tide. And it's a reproduction Victorian postcard made on a big glass cutting board. It's absolutely gorgeous. Sherry is a giver, and I like to think that I'm a giver too, but I cannot outgive Sherry Beardsley. She just sees what you want, sees what you need, and she gets it for you. She's just wonderful. And it made me stop and look at the vivid colors. It made me stop and think about friendship and how wonderful it is. And I've got a handful of super great friends, more than a handful, and I'm so proud of that. And then I used my old cheap cutting board to cut the roast up. And then I went to TJ Maxx because this is the Santa bag that they had last year, the 99-cent square plastic bag that you can make an outside pillow out of. And this is the Santa that they have this year. I wasn't real crazy about him. I bought one. He's a little cartoonish for me, but you can make pillows out of him. And then while I was looking around, TJ Maxx always has good quality paper, and they had a lot of vintage inspired prints. I couldn't get real good pictures because of the roll, and the shine on the cellophane, but oh my gosh, they had some pretty ones. I didn't buy any because Lord knows I have enough wrapping paper to last me forever, but this one was really pretty. It was kind of 50s vintage, and it was nice. And then I thought that striped paper was a nice coordinate for the rest of them. They were just so vintagey and pretty. And of course, my Victoria magazine. I'm going to tell you about magazines instead of a book this time. Victoria is my favorite. I've used it from the beginning of their production. This is Cottage magazine. It comes out 4 times a year. I love it. And then for more antique-y stuff, Country Rustic magazine and Primitive Place magazine are my go-tos. And Primitive Place, you can find it in some shops, and you can order it online, and it's a really good one. But, and French Cottage. I love French Cottage and English Cottage, and I've manifested a lot of things out of French Cottage and Victoria magazine. I'm telling you, a lot. But I have to add, I have touched this thing for like 35 years, and nothing. Don't worry, my husband knows about my lifelong crush on Kurt Russell. So if you guys are enjoying my videos, I invite you to follow me on Instagram. And next week we're going to put the greens out. We're going to find the tree for the nativity tree and put the nativities out. I haven't found that tree yet. And we're going to make everything finished in my house. So please like and subscribe. And I love you guys very much. And please go out and do something that makes your heart happy today. Bye.